Okay,
So, good afternoon po. We are the student from the PWC under the subject of Philippine Indigenous Communities, and today we're gonna ask some questions about the indigenous people organizations, general information and background on your organization institution. So the first question is, please provide the name of your organization, entity, and where it is based.
okay, so we are Forum Zivilien Friedensdienst. So it's German, but it's short. In short, it's just Forum ZFD or Forum ZFD. Our head office is based in Cologne, in Germany, but we have 3 offices here in the Philippines. One here in Davao City, one in Cotabato City, and one in Butuan. So these project offices, as we call them, are we specialize, what we say, or focus on different context-based issues in these areas.
In addition to that question po, can you please also provide details on the objectives and goals about your organization?
Well, we had a rather long discussion on that during our strategy planning just earlier this month. But the basic, I would say, statement that we could say with what we want to achieve as an organization is to have long-lasting and sustainable peace in Mindanao, if you would make it that simple. Although it's not simple because there are so many different issues in Mindanao that hinders what we call peace. So our objective, I would say, is to do the best that we can and address the gaps that we see and we think we have the power to change in some ways, in our own ways, and move towards civic engagement as well. And we're very happy that students like you are talking about topics, engaging in topics like these, because it's one of the things that I would say contributes to that vision that we have as an organization.
For the next question is, which indigenous peoples or communities does your organization represent and or work with by partnerships?
Yeah, as I was saying, we have 3 different project offices, no? In those 3 locations that I mentioned. So our organization, we work with, as I said again, context-based issues. So the office that we have in Cotabato, we work mostly with Bangsamoro issues, with issues in relation to the implementation of the Bangsamoro Organic Law, and in issues related to the BARM, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region Muslim Mindanao in general, because it's based in Cotabato. But of course, it's not only based on Muslim communities, it's also based on how this majority of Muslim communities interacts with minority communities, in the BARM. Because although in different contexts or in other contexts, such as in Davao or the rest of the wider Philippines, Muslims are the minorities. In BARM, it has a very special situation going on because then it's different. Muslims there are, the majority of this area. So we see how the smaller groups in that would interact with this new type of government. In Butuan, which is in the region of Caraga, Region 13, we work mostly with indigenous peoples organizations that are non-Muslim indigenous peoples organizations. So there are some of the ethnic groups that we work with there include Manobos, mostly Manobos actually. And one of our partner organizations there is called PASAC. So PASAC Incorporated, and they work with helping out these tribal communities for their right as a cultural minority. So many issues covered as well. But one of the major issues that they try to tackle with that partner that we have in Butuan in Caraga rather, is on ancestral domain. So, ayan. And finally, in Davao, at least with the project that I'm working on, It's called it is a project on non-violent conflict transformation, or NVCT. We tackle issues on ancestral domain as well, resource-based conflicts, and discrimination among Muslim communities. And this is because we are partners with two Islamized or Muslim community organizations called SIMCDC, or the Samal Island Muslim Communities Muslim Development Samal Island Muslim Communities and Development Center, so SIMCDC in short. So they're based in Samal, and we also work with LKMFI, or the Learn Kagan Muslim Foundation Incorporated, based in Pantukan. So all of these, they're minority groups, but especially for LKMFI in Pantukan, they're also indigenous peoples because they are Kagans, who are original inhabitants of the area. So many, right? I just struggle to remember. Yeah, so those are some of the groups that we work with.
Are there laws and policies or administrative measures in your organization to recognize the rights of indigenous people to own, use, control, and manage land, territories, and resources? If so, please provide details.
I would say organizationally, no, because it's not really what we do, like in the organization, but that is our mandate. No, I mean, that's part of our mandate, to basically help out, these cultural minorities. There is no any rigid like text or whatever or provision whatsoever that says Forums NFD needs to. There's nothing like that. But I think one helpful thing that I could say about that is we rely on laws that that are supposed to protect IP rights, such as the IPRA law, the Indigenous Peoples something act. Sorry, my thoughts are so cloudy. Indigenous Peoples Rights Act. So IPRA law, So I know it's something that has been mentioned so many times in your subject. So yeah, we rely on the IPRA, and in the case of our office in the Bangsamoro, we rely on the Bangsamoro Organic Law. So both of these legal instruments basically need to be implemented properly so that the needs of these ID communities and minority groups are met. So we rely on that.
For the next one, are there any efforts or initiatives to demarcate or map communal lands? Number 2, registration of land titles, individual and collective. And lastly, adjudication of claims for collective rights to land, territories, and resources. If so, please provide details.
For the Bangsamoro, it's easy. It's the ball. It's very famous. It's the Bangsamoro Organic Law. It demarcates its territories in the Bangsamoro. It defines what the Bangsamoro or who the Bangsamoro is. It defines its, and it's very widely recognized, even because they have a special block grant for the region. So it's as of now, it's very progressive in the bar as of now, because the BOL is being implemented, the new Bangsamoro government is being established, so it's somehow well in this area, in this regard as of now. But with other indigenous peoples groups, such as the groups that we work with in Davao or in Caraga, it's not the same, because even if they have IPRA rely on, Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act rely on, it's not very much implemented the way we would want it to be implemented. And the NCIP, the National Commission for Indigenous Peoples, on Indigenous Peoples, has somehow become not so reliable, I would say, for these communities. I mean, at least what they would say, our partners in our community. So when you talk about demarcating lands, we're talking about ancestral domain. But when we're talking about ancestral domain, it's not only about, hey, this is a territory of the indigenous peoples. It's not about that. It's also about autonomy. It's also about self-governance. It's also about them being able to enrich their culture and preserve their heritage and, all these things. So it is a right that needs to be afforded to them. And the thing is that even if there are all these instrumentalities, such as the IPRA already recognizing that, they're still in this constant struggle of having to assert that, hey, we have a right to actually govern ourselves, to determine what happens to our tribe, to practice our customs and all these things, to till our own soils. But so many, I would say, human rights violations against these people, against indigenous peoples, happen on a day-to-day basis under our noses, and not very many people are aware of it. So, yeah, I did catch some other points, but what was that? Can you
I will repeat the question. Are there any efforts or initiatives to, one, demarcate and or map communal lands? Number two, registration of land titles, individual and collective. And for the last, adjudication of claims for collective rights to land, territories, and resources.
As I was saying, ancestral domain, but there is that, and I will have to emphasize on this thought, there is that misconception that when we're talking about ancestral domain, it's always about demarcating lands, it's always about registering their titles as a collective owner of these lands. It's not about just the land, As I was saying, it's also about self-governance and autonomy and being able to preserve your culture. It has to be, the messaging more has to be that, other than just demarcating that this is our boundary from here to there. So there are structures, measures that help with that, and that's the IPRA. I'd say that's the IPRA. I'm not well versed with the IPRA, but it's there. It's definitely there.
Thank you. For the next one, can you please provide information on any projects or programs to ensure the free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous peoples in relation to development projects and or extra activities?
That's the thing, One of the measures in the IPRA with regards to entrance of development, quote unquote, projects or extractive industries like mining or some agricultural activities in ancestral lands or ancestral territories is that FPIC, free, prior, informed consent, But the thing is that the reality is that it's not practiced. As I was saying, the laws are not implemented as much as we would like them to be implemented, or as much as they're supposed even to be implemented. So definitely the reality is that most of the time FPICs are basically looked over by these entities, but you have to know that there are some areas, like in the case of our partners in Pantukan, they have an indigenous political structure. So this structure actually is or was established by the power of the IPRA law, because it says there that these groups, minority groups in their own dominion, basically, because that's where they're from, they're the original inhabitants of these lands, I would say, or sea or whatever, because it's not just lands, it's also, the domain would be sea, waters, etc. So they are given this given this power, I would say, by the IPRA to establish their own indigenous political structure. And that indigenous political structure composes of the different communal or community rather leaders in that area, no? So, and it's really up to them how their indigenous or local governance would look like. So if their local governance looks like, if their political or traditional governance looks like it's headed by a datu, then that indigenous political structure would look like it's headed by a datu. And things like this, no? If there is a council involved, then there is a council involved. So basically, the IPRA provides for the creation of this indigenous political structure. And this IPS, this structure is the one, no, assigned to deal with matters concerning FPIC, no? And because of the establishment of these structures, it's not as easy now to disregard FPIC. Kasi there are already leaders in the community that take note of, okay, so there's a new business here that's covered under our ancestral domain, so you need our consent. No? So there are already people in that structure doing that. All thanks to IPRA as well, no? But again, there's a need to strengthen the implementation of the law so that it's not only limited to, okay, you need our consent, but also moving forward to discussions like how does mining, for example, in our areas look like in the future for us, no? Would that really benefit us, or would it extract so much of our resources under our ancestral lands that there's nothing that will be left for us in the future, no? For us to build the future on as original inhabitants of these areas, or would we really benefit so much from that? Or the activities under this industry that, that we would be willing to give you power over these territories and things like this, no? So, I think really these structures also need to go beyond just securing their consent, but also seeing how in the future it would work out for their.
So, I need some clarification. Kasi, about sa FPIC po, can you repeat what kind of program yung FPIC?
Sorry?
Yung about sa FPIC po, can we expand or give details about it?
Like how does it really happen? Well, as I was saying, there is the IPS na, no? So, for example, if there is a company, that wants to operate in these lands, they have to secure the consent of that IPS. So they have to physically, personally even, go to the datus, for example, in that area. No? Kasi that's the purpose of the IPS. But also to discuss what is there for them in the long run. Or how will the operations of that business company, for example, negatively affect their communities, because it's most often what the case is. Na parang at first, okay, there's a company opening up and we're happy because there's going to be livelihood opportunities for the people in here, but how about the future, no? So that's usually what happens talaga. The long-term effects of these things introduced in the communities need to be discussed.
Another thing, do you have any examples of good practices that may be useful for resolving issues of ownership and control over natural resources? If so, can you please provide details and please include information on any specific programs targeting indigenous women?
Sige, resolving resource-based issues. Sige. Well, with the establishment of the IPS, it's not just about them giving consent, no? It's also about them resolving issues like this. So that's their kasi, as I was saying, ancestral domain is not just about demarcating lands and territories. It's also about being able to govern themselves, self-governance and autonomy, and it includes conflict resolution processes. So the IPRA vests them the power to resolve their own conflicts, especially when it's land and resource-based conflicts. So the process is usually dependent on what the customary practices of that certain tribe or certain group is. So they have their own customary laws. The IPRA, the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, vests them the power to practice their customary laws. So that's how they usually do it. Some of them even there are practices where I would say. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it. But yeah, there are. They have their own customs, and the IPRA gives respect to those customs. So they follow that in conflict resolution. But as to women representation, that is one issue that's always brought up in these kinds of discussions. It's because, well, when vesting, indigenous peoples the power to follow their customs in terms of conflict resolution processes, for example, women are most often left out, because in the history of the world, that is the history of the world, not just with them, It's not just I'm not saying that it's only in these, they are non-progressive, so they leave out women. It's not that, It's applicable for the rest of the world, just that we are, our pace is a bit more, fast, I would say. But right now, I would say that at least with our partners, as Forum, we see a very big development and the progress in terms of including women. In our partners in Caraga, for example, some of their mediators are women, And this is something that's non-traditional to many cultural groups. It's mostly men, some are very patriarchal in terms of their leadership, So roles like being a mediator or being a woman leader or just a leader in the community is something that is not very common. But we see that with our partners already. So there are some na talagang siya yung nasa center, He's the one at the center of a conflict resolution process, She is considered as a bai, as the equivalent of a datu. In a minority group like that, in a cultural minority group like that. So these things are already happening, and especially with young people naman, with our partners in the Davao team, there are so many young women already who are facilitating processes with our partners and who are doing things beyond just preparing meals for the activity. Because that's the usual role that they see. When there's an activity, it has to be the women group who would prepare the meals or snacks or whatever for this activity. But it goes beyond. The women who are part of these groups already go beyond. So that's a very big progress, I guess. And it's not something that's really emphasized in many legal instruments. But it's something that happened over a course of so many years of working to try to, I wouldn't say empower, but build on the existing capacities of women. Because I believe that, the women and youth are already very much, we have something to offer already, We just have to build on that. We don't have to be taught, to start from zero to hero. We don't come from zero. cultural, and I speak we because I'm part of a cultural minority of the Maguindanaoans as well, no? I'm just not working on that. I'm a part of one of them. So, yun, I think we see very good progress in that regard. As someone who works in the field of development and peacebuilding, there's a very positive trend when it comes to the participation and representation of women.
Thank you. Next is, has your organization been involved in any legislative policy and or administrative measures taken by the government to implement the UN or United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People? Please provide details about this question.
When well, Forums FD has intentionally, put very careful measures when it comes to engaging the government or the state, although it's the Forums FD is very human rights based, and these things. We are not directly involved, I would say, with going out and partnering with the government, writing laws, etc. So that's not really the way Forum does its advocacy, because there's also an advocacy component to what Forum does. But one of the things that might be connected to that is this one project that we have in the Davao team called the MHS, or Mindanao Histories and Studies project. And what it does basically is it did establish an advocacy group of historians, of academicians, and of history experts in Mindanaoan history to lobby for to correct or rectify, maybe, and include the narratives of Mindanaoans in the national, in history subjects in the national educational system. I mean, I don't know with you, because you're so progressive with your curriculum right now. You even have this subject, but with ours back then, there's not much correct information or even information on the history of Mindanao that's included in our subjects from elementary to college. So it's always about Rizal. It's always about there is even a subject that's called Rizal, but there's no subject that's called Lapu-Lapu. I mean Sultan Kudarat, or more southern-based Filipino heroes, I would say, or even narratives about things that happened or shaped the history of Mindanao, such as Kalimbang Massacre, or the things that the Moros have been through, or these things. Basically, Mindanao narratives are not very much present in our history subjects. That's told in our schools. So this project advocates for the inclusion of this, or interfacing of these narratives. So it would require sort of although not legislative, but administrative changes within the national national office, or the DepEd, So because we're talking about a curriculum, that you want to change, then there would be an involvement of that, So yeah, I think that's one of the things that we're working on that's kind of connected with changes like that. So, and hopefully, it pushes through positively in the future.
Thank you for the next question. Have any steps been taken to develop a national action plan or strategy on indigenous peoples? Please also include information on any capacity building to strengthen awareness and action to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
No, I would say no. I've been part of, even before I was with Forum, Well, I'm not sure now. Maybe there is. I just didn't know. Just correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have any research data available on this one. But no, I think I haven't heard of any national action plan on asserting the rights of indigenous peoples. I was part of developing a national action plan on youth, peace, and security, as well as a national action plan on preventing and countering violent extremism. But I haven't heard anything like that. Maybe it's in the works, I'm not sure. And yeah, hopefully if it is, because it's usually the UN that spearheads something like that. It's them who call on CSOs, civil society organizations, members of the civil society, the academe, of government and state actors. It's usually them that get us together in terms of that. But I haven't heard so much about that yet. But hopefully, yeah.
Next one is, can you please provide information on the involvement of your organization or peoples with United Nations offices at the country level, including A, any project, activities, dialogues, and or public awareness campaign, and B, for the preparation of country programs and the United Nations Development Assistance Framework, or UNDAF.
Well, since forums at FED is based in Europe, it's I don't know, it's more inclined towards well, there's not much of a mention of like anchoring our goals as an organization with UN goals, no? There is literally no like direct discussion that okay, all of these strategies that they have should be connected with the UN plans, whatever. But I would say that our cross-cutting issues are also cross-cutting issues in the UN's plans, no? Because we give so much importance on these issues. One is human rights. Another is gender sensitivity and conflict sensitivity. So instead of like anchoring it with all of these plans that the UN has, we just identify the most important issues that needs to be seen or that has to touch everything that we do in the organization, from project implementation, planning, and evaluation to even finance and accounting. These things, three things that we have, touches all of our operations. So yeah, I wouldn't really say that there is a direct link. No, there is a link, of course, because we have the same goals, no, ultimately, but there is no direct identification, I would say. Just that, when talking about, I don't know, did you mention about Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs?
It's all about any project activities, dialogues, and sa public awareness campaign, and also sa preparation of country programs and United Nations Development Assistance Frameworks.
Yeah, so yeah, not directly connected with UN plans, no, but yeah, even when speaking about human rights, no, because we're very big on it, because it is one of our cross-cutting issues. Of course, we do connect with the UN Declaration of Human Rights, no? With the UNHR, so Universal Declaration of Human Rights with the UN. We connected with that, no? And then there's also the project that I was mentioning, our MHS project. It is an awareness campaign, no, of not only the history, Mindanaoan history, but also the rights that comes with, you know, being a Mindanaoan, because it's also asserting that as a Mindanaoan, your genuine history needs to be represented, no? So yeah, these things. I would have loved to supply more, but there isn't really a specific identification as to
For the last question is, has your organization been involved in the implementation or review and follow up to the 2030 agenda If so, please provide details.
Again, it's not like very much connected to that. But yeah, well, the 2030 agenda kasi includes like, all of these 17, 18 sustainable development goals, no? And Forum ZFD really connects with, I think, 16. Please repeat. So, the Sustainable Development Goal on peace is what the whole work of Forum ZFD is connected to. So, it contributes to that. I'm not sure just research if I'm getting it wrong. No. So, yeah. Yeah, that's all I could say, really, because our naman talaga is conflict transformation and peace building, so it contributes to that specific goal in the 2030 agenda.
So
And strong institutions, I think. Yeah, so
that's all for the question. Baka na kayo, so you have a question. Ikaw dyan. Yeah, that ends our interview po, and thank you for giving very wonderful answers for the questions.
No, but I'm really, like, my mind is floating right now because I just presented a 34-page, which I wrote 3 days, like most of it. Yeah, so if you have any like follow-up questions that I need to supply, please just email. I'm just one email away. Like, I will try to answer.
Okay.
It's a wrap.
So, thank you so much.